Hey, it's me, Kimberly. For this video today, in light of World Mental Health Day, which was celebrated Wednesday, the 10th of October, and which of course was not broadcasted enough to my liking in my country, I was thinking a lot about mental health, my role in society as it pertains to mental health, and how mental health is treated in the Caribbean. But before I jump into this, if you're not watching this on YouTube, I'll just let you know that YouTube is actually my mainstay. So if you want to interact with me, then it's best that you head over there and look at the video. I am a ridiculously busy and currently tired person. So liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to me on my YouTube channel helps to ensure that I have the ability to put time towards doing stuff like this, which is basically talking to people in these types of forums. As it pertains to mental health, I recently became a doctor, but as a medical student, we had a psychiatry rotation where we spent short stints of time in the St. Anne Psychiatric Asylum, as well as in the psychiatric wards of the San Fernando General Hospital and the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex. So there we met people with a variety of disorders, from depression, anxiety, personality disorders, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. And the takeaway message I got from that experience was that yes, mental health issues do exist in the Caribbean and they are very prevalent. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, as we call it, the DSM-5 criteria, calls for this diagnosis of mental conditions to only be made if symptoms cause clinically significant distress in social, occupational, and other areas of functioning. But at the same time, we all know that there are people with features of these illnesses that we may pass by every day, and because we perceive them as functioning well, that we don't consider that they might be suffering from a mental condition at all. And that is because you never really get the proper idea of someone's mental state or their own personal consciousness. And as interesting as that is, it's also quite scary when you really look at it. Sometimes you're around people so much, you might be a friend, a relative, a husband or wife, but what you actually know about them depends on what they choose to let you know. Unless, of course, there are situations which arise which present red flags basically to you, and then sometimes we even miss these things because we're so busy with our own lives, or we have basically the guise of closeness and familiarity with people that we forget to ask them typical questions like how are you today, and expect a full, deep, comprehensive answer. So mental illness is a very interesting topic to me, but there are a lot of things that worry me about mental illness, especially living in the setting of the Caribbean. I personally believe that the landscape of the Caribbean has actually contributed a lot to mental health issues, and it also further facilitates the stigmatization of persons with mental health issues. From the historical fact of the diaspora to the inheritance of the colonial model of the treatment of psychiatric conditions, which was only as detailed and in-depth as, well, throw them in a madhouse, basically so that we, the public, can pretend that they don't exist, so that we could get rid of liabilities, and so that we could forget things and people that we don't want to remember. To the fact now that many of those institutions that are currently centuries old still operate today with the similar model. I worry about why the fact that, as it pertains to mental health, religion has been so misappropriated in a way in order to victimize and to chastise. When anything is wrong, we as Christians or as people with any religion are encouraged to seek out God. And that's not something that I would ever discourage. But the idea that I've heard some people express that people with mental illnesses are as they are because they are failing in their relationship with God, I can't agree with that. Or the situation where people assume that people with mental illnesses have like obeah put on them, so they do somebody something and somebody do them back, that so they walk in the road mad and stuff like that. I think those are very popular but nonsensical ideologies that we have in the Caribbean. I also worry about those who use religion as a placebo for assistance. Since Sunday school, as if it wasn't too macabre for our little brains to comprehend, we were taught that suicide was a sin, and that anyone who committed suicide was therefore unable to get to heaven. You would be surprised how much the religious view of suicide prohibits people from committing suicide, and I understand that that is probably their intention in the first place. However, it doesn't tackle the fact that the thoughts are there, the intentions are there. They just are hanging on basically by a thread of a prospect, which with any push or shove in the wrong direction can literally throw them off and we lose them forever. I don't think it makes sense for you to go through every day thinking that you will be better off dead and have religion guilt you into saving yourself. So I worry that Caribbean people do not understand that faith and help can coexist. I worry about the how that will look mentality that we have in the Caribbean, which makes people think that words like therapy and psychiatrists are curse words, and that if someone says that you should be on medication, that you are basically dissing them or you're insulting them. So we sometimes allow our loved ones' mental illness to deteriorate until it gets totally out of our hands. And even so, when it does get out of our hands, the issues tend to be hidden. And that's the privilege of mental illness. You can always pretend that everything is fine. But I think we in the Caribbean, oftentimes we disallow the opportunity to learn from precedents and miss a lot of teaching opportunities where mental health is concerned. So when someone else is inevitably going through this situation, or when a loved one of someone is inevitably going through this same situation, they don't have your model or your experience to learn from, and that's very unfortunate. So we all basically end up having to learn from scratch because everyone is afraid of their testimony when it comes to mental illness. I worry about having to be okay with the fact that people that I grew up with and people that raised me were actually more sadistic than I thought. I read on Facebook, I believe it came from a newspaper article, where a man was saying a story of the village mad woman. And basically what she would do is whenever there were cars around and the cars would honk, she would argue with them. And of course she was just known as the village mad woman. But he later expressed that he recently heard that the reason that she acts like this towards cars is because when she was abroad, she was in a car accident with her sister, and her sister passed away and she lived. And after that, she has had a fear of cars. So of course, people in the village, even people who knew the story, when they see her, because they know it would elicit a reaction, they would honk. So you get a reaction, a laugh, a bite of entertainment, a story to tell, and you move on with your life. And you don't think, the thing in your brain doesn't trigger, okay, I can be causing unnecessary stress or duress in this person. So I worry about my local madman now, or the one with the clear substance abuse disorder, who they call bound to drunk, who will literally drink anything from puncheon to beer rum and then drag himself back home every day. I worry because people found it so easy to speak his name, but everyone avoided speaking his story. I worry about the disinterest in education about the topic, even amongst the most educated. With the ease of accessibility of the internet, and with the ease of accessibility of people such as myself who might know a bit more about the topic than the average person, and considering the fact that in 2011, out of all the countries in the world, Trinidad and Tobago was the #1 country who searched for Kim Kardashian. There are people who can't differentiate schizophrenia from multiple personality disorder. There are people who think that being neat and tidy means obsessive compulsive disorder. There are people who think that people with bipolar disorders have split personalities. And there are people who call being sad depressed. I worry about crime in my country as it pertains to mental health. What types of personality disorders or otherwise do these criminals have that they find comfort and sometimes joy in hurting others? I worry about if my bits of contribution of stigmatization has affected their desire or ability to get help. So I wonder if I could have contributed to the cycle in any way. I also worry about the mental illnesses that they are now causing. Post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, all from having to deal with being in those situations, being victimized, or having family members who go through these situations or who actually pass away and you have to cope with it. I worry that we in the Caribbean will never understand or approve of sanctioned mental health days, to be away from the scheduled responsibilities of school and work, because we have fashioned our way into a rigorous developed country schedule while combating developing country issues. I worry about potential high achievers or current high achievers who happen to come from well-to-do families who obviously now have no reason to be sad. I worry about the fact that because some of us had to struggle in life, that we think that we have a monopoly on human emotions and therefore have the right to dismiss the emotions of others. I worry that Caribbean parents will continue avoiding being seen as friends to their children so much that they would be okay with continuing being seen as enemies. So I worry that the persons in the household that are supposed to know and help are now currently and gladly clueless. And I also worry about the possibility that someone or anyone would experience mental illness, but then I also understand that you get so much understanding when you actually experience it for yourself. If I had to speak for myself, I did have a situation where I would describe it as post-traumatic stress disorder, but that is transient. So I had a period in time where I would describe as having a mental illness, but then that resolved, and it was basically like coming out of a cocoon or a shell of darkness. So I feel like at the time when I was going through it, I could understand mental illness better than I do now. Now, when I have my depressive episodes, as I call it, or when I just feel sad, I can shake myself out of it. And I think that's what the general public thinks it is. You can shake yourself out of it, you can will yourself out of it. Just something needs to click in your mind and it's going to happen. You know, pray and things will change, but it's really not that easy. So that's basically all I have to say. I do wish that this opportunity was taken by others to have a discourse about mental health in the Caribbean, because it is an important issue to us and there are lots of misconceptions that need to be cleared up. So it takes people who know to speak about it and educate and encourage people to share their stories, because it's more common than we would all think. Be sure to subscribe if you have not. I do chit chats like this once a week, either Wednesday or Thursday. I'm usually not as somber, so if you want to see my comedy videos, then you can check those out. Hit me with a like if you like this video. Drop a comment below so that I would get more insight on what you all feel about how the Caribbean treats mental health issues. Furthermore, if you think that this is something that is worthwhile, I implore you to share. If not share this video, which of course I would prefer, then share the ideology that there is more that can be done. So I hope to see you all back here soon. Take care and bye.